Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is nice to see you here today. I'm Robert McBride of All Classical FM, and this is Carlos Kalmar, Music Director of the Oregon Symphony.
Good afternoon.
And you are in for a delightful concert this afternoon, and I know that because I stayed to hear the concert last night. And it wasn't until, let me back up a little bit. You may know that it was originally announced that Joshua Bell would play a Shostakovich violin concerto for these concerts, and then that was changed a couple of months ago to Brahms. And I was disappointed at first because I've never heard that Shostakovich violin concerto in concert, and I would like to someday. But then I thought, well, hey, it's Joshua Bell, it's Carlos Kalmar, it's the Oregon Symphony, and it's the Brahms violin concerto, which is one of the greatest works ever in that genre. One of your favorite composers. I thought, okay, I'm not going to complain. And it wasn't until this afternoon when I was getting ready to come here that I realized that I had no thoughts whatsoever of Shostakovich last night because everything was so engaging and wonderful, and yeah, it was good. But I wanted to ask you, how did you find out that he wanted to make that change? Did he call you personally?
No, he didn't call me personally, but he called through his manager to our artistic department at the Symphony and said, well, it was a mess up with his calendar. I mean, Josh is he's very busy, so he needs to really, the interesting point is that, I didn't know that beforehand, it was his first time ever to play Shostakovich 1, and we were kind of like the ones who got the premiere of Joshua Bell playing that piece. And then it doesn't really matter what reasons, but something got out of hand and cancelled in his calendar, and he needed to restructure everything, and all of a sudden he simply couldn't make it. But, you know, of course I gave him a hard time. And I said, Joshua, you know, in 2 years you have to come back and play that.
Yeah, what did he say?
He said, yeah.
Excellent. Is this a commitment?
Well, you know, of course, from my side, it's very easy. Of course it is a commitment, but I mean, everybody wants a piece of Joshua, and it's kind of difficult to fiddle around with all of this and make it happen.
So to speak, yes.
So I would say, yes, it is a commitment, but if it doesn't happen the way it needs to happen, then we'll play something else.
Yeah, and his life is so rich and busy and complex. He's music director of the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields now, on top of everything else that he does. But if you want to learn more about why the change happened, Joshua explained it very clearly to James McQuillan in an interview that you can read at Oregon Live. And I love the fact that Joshua Bell, one of the biggest stars in classical music these days, remains such a nice man, and he's just so open and honest and said, well, this is what happened and we had to change it. And he's even staying to sign CDs after all of these performances at the Classical Millennium table in the lobby, so generous with his time.
Well, you know that I always say the same thing. Real great artists are not divas. I mean, if you have this sense that great artists throw an attitude at the orchestra, the staff, the conductors. From my remembrance, the only people ever that have this tendency, sometimes, it's extremely rare, are singers. I will not name. No names.
But they're most likely sopranos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Some cliches are more truer than others.
Yeah. But the truth is, I mean, we have worked with great artists here, and I mean, Joshua is a delight. Yo-Yo, when he was here, I mean, Yo-Yo was so cool, and he's very interested in everything. And I wouldn't see the point in being complicated.
Yeah, but you see, you're not like that, so you wouldn't see the point.
Yeah, ask them.
Okay.
They will say high maintenance.
Well, you will see. Is there anybody here today who's never been to an Oregon Symphony concert? Yes. Oh, yeah, there are a few. Wonderful. You're going to see more smiles on this stage tonight than with any orchestra I've ever seen perform. These people are really enjoying themselves, enjoying each other, having a good time. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's what the Oregon...
They couldn't be too unhappy with you, or they wouldn't be smiling all the time.
Well, what am I supposed to say about that? Yeah, all in all considering, I think the Oregon Symphony and me as their music director, it's a good pairing. It works well.
It really does, and that's part of why we're able to get people like Joshua Bell coming here over and over again, because he likes working with you, he likes working with them. It's wonderful. And Hilary Hahn's going to come back, right?
I'm not sure of that.
I hope
I
so.
always try. I mean, Hilary is another one of those
Hard to
whom I
get.
simply always say, get her. I don't really care when and what. Just get her here. And I think I just forgot.
Yeah.
Too many things in this poor head.
Yeah. And another thing I really like about Joshua Bell is that he writes his own cadenzas, like in this Brahms violin concerto. Brahms left that solo bit up to the violinist for whom he wrote the concerto to come up with something, and that's the version that most violinists play, though there are others, but Joshua Bell and some other artists these days write their own, and I like that. And the recording that you made of the Brahms violin concerto with Rachel Barton Pine, she did the same thing, recorded Joachim's and her own for that CD. That's actually one of the most interesting recordings, I think, there is of the Brahms violin concerto.
Yeah, you know that recording, I mean, we are kind of taking off here. There is a recording with the Chicago Symphony and Rachel Barton Pine, who is based in Chicago, and I am conducting that, and it's Brahms violin concerto and Joachim violin concerto. Now, we got, when the CD was released, we got tremendous praise for our interpretation of the Brahms violin concerto. Trust me, we nearly did not rehearse that. There was no time. I mean, essentially it was Chicago Symphony, who knows this piece backwards, a fantastic artist, Rachel, who can play every note is there, and then I try to stay out of the way, so to speak, and everything worked fine. But it was so fast what we did until we got it down, and there was no time. Miracles happen.
Right. And that's among the recordings that Classical Millennium has in the lobby. They also have Joshua Bell's recording of the Brahms Concerto with the Cleveland Orchestra, which is quite wonderful, and his newest, which they just got last week, which is a French recital program of works for violin and piano. Now, since you are a violinist, I mean, I know you love conducting all kinds of music. You love to work, and you love being in that role as of an accompanist with a soloist, so you mediate between the soloist and the orchestra. But since you are a violinist, is there a special pleasure in conducting a violin concerto with somebody like Bell?
When it's somebody like him, yeah. I mean, okay.
Do you ever wish you were doing what he's doing?
No. No, because, you know, I stopped. It is pretty embarrassing to say that, but I stopped practicing the violin 32 years ago.
More or less.
Pretty more than less. And of course, before that, when I was a student of violin, the reality was I was one of those musicians that take a long time until they realize that talent is maybe 15% of what we can really put out there. The rest is work. And I had some talent, but I was so lazy. It's insane. So I got to, I could play back then. But I have never I was never interested in actually taking the role off. Because it's simply, I mean, truth to be told, it's simply too awful what comes out of my violin playing these days. You don't want to hear it.
Oh, you're going to want to hear this performance. Joshua Bell playing the Brahms violin concerto today. It's wondrous stuff. The people in the orchestra who really get a workout on this program are those guys in the trumpet section.
Oh, yeah.
They are earning their money. First of all, there's a short piece for brass only that begins the concert. Beautiful tone from
Oh,
those
yeah,
guys.
they can
Warm
really play.
sound. Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah.
And then Handel's music for the Royal Fireworks after intermission with these adorable little baby trumpets so they can play the really high stuff. And they sound great. It's not like period instruments where, you know, they struggle, the brass players struggle so hard just to get the notes out. With these little trumpets, with the valves, they can do it, and it still sounds beautiful. And Jonathan Greenlee will be playing his gorgeous little timpani with the calfskin heads and the wooden mallets. They just sound so perfect. And then in the Janacek Sinfonietta, the 6 trumpets wailing, wow.
You like that,
Yeah.
right?
So I hope they can get through these 4 nights in a row with no bloodshed.
Actually, I can, speaking of during rehearsal time, you know, the Janacek that you're going to hear is it's a piece that Leos Janacek wrote when he was quite old, and it's a piece, it's a symphony. For a symphony, it's kind of short. It has 5 movements, but lasts something like 25 minutes. And it's the outer movements, movement 1 and movement 5, are very brassy. It's very fanfare oriented.
That was the music in my head when I woke up this morning.
Oh, oh yeah, it doesn't leave you. Now, the original version of this piece, which you probably will never hear, requires 12 trumpets. And on our day and age, when a normal orchestra of this size, like the Oregon Symphony, only has 3, it means that you have to hire 9 trumpets that are on top of that very, very good. And it's kind of a financial mess, to say it very clearly. Now, what we did was we kind of created our own hybrid, which means we played, instead of with 12 trumpets, we played with 6, which makes, trust me, a lot of noise. Now, in terms of the workout that the trumpets get this evening, playing the Banchieri at the beginning, the Royal Fireworks in the middle, and the Leos Janacek at the end. I remember in one rehearsal where, I mean, I didn't change a note, but I tweaked a little bit things going between the version that we play and the original version, so it really sounds well. Jeff Work, our fantastic principal trumpet, looked at what I have done and said, Carlos, in this bar that you are actually giving us a rest, there was one bar where I said to the trumpets, take a deep breath, don't play. He said, it doesn't sound right. We need to play that. And I know my lip will hurt even more, but I want to do it. So you get a sense of how interested our trumpet section is in to deliver a great job on this, which they do, and how committed they are as musicians to get as close to the original as it is possible.
And a bass trumpet.
That even, I tell you the truth, even that is an invention of, can I call them my guys? Okay, I told you there is an original version of Janacek's Sinfonietta. The original version calls for 12 trumpets, 4 trombones, a bass trumpet, and 2 tenor tubas and a big tuba. Now, our version is actually normal size orchestra, 3 trombones, tuba, 4 horns, 6 trumpets. But Aaron Lavier, who is our principal trombonist, said, well, I see that in my score, this section at the beginning, you will hear it. It's very, very clear. This piece at the beginning requires a trombone, but I know that the original version requires a bass trumpet, so I'm going to play it on a bass trumpet because the sound is different. And
it really is.
That is how these folks get to really sink their teeth into a piece like this. Because, matter of fact, I tell you that this is the very first time that the Oregon Symphony plays Janacek's Sinfonietta. It's highly unlikely that this piece has ever been played in Oregon. And I have my doubts whether you will hear this piece again in the next 25 to 30 years, because it's kind of difficult to put together, and there is so much music. I would like to do it, but reality, it's a reality check. But to see this, the musicians actually enjoy this magnificently difficult piece. It's just fantastic. And all of that, I'll give you another piece of information about the trumpets. You will see in the Royal Fireworks 6 trumpets on the stage, but what they do is there are only 3 voices in the Royal Fireworks music by Georg Friedrich Händel, and they split the roles. You will sometimes have the right side of the trumpets pause and the left plays, and the other way around. And the only reason why they do that is so that they can save their lips to get to the end of the concert. Because, as Robert already pointed out, this is a workout.
There's a nice stereo effect in the Handel because the trumpets are over here and the horns are way over there, so it's a nice antiphonal thing when they go back and forth. And it's such glorious, fun music. There's a lot of sort of sit-up straight music in this program, the brassy things, the fanfare things. It's exciting, it's nice.
Well, the thing with the sit-up straight music, that I would say that happens mainly in the second half of the program, has also something to do with stylistical elements. Because when we play the Handel music for the Royal Fireworks, one of the things that this orchestra does very well by now is switch between styles. The way we play this piece is very different from the way we play the Brahms, let alone it's very different from the way we approach sound as a way of expressing ourselves in the Janacek. But this orchestra can do it, and in terms of the sit-up straight, if we would dare to play for you the music for the Royal Fireworks by Handel in a romantic interpretation, it would not be sit-up straight. It would be more like, yeah, cozy. But, I mean, the music for the Royal Fireworks, another piece of military music, was ordered by King George II of England to celebrate the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle in 1746, I think it was. And so it was the end of an 8-year war in Europe. And okay, everybody signed off on the treaty, everybody was happy. And King George II was very adamant to his composer, Georg Friedrich Händel, and said, I only want military music instruments in what you're going to write. So, kind of reluctantly, Händel wrote this piece, and the original scoring was something along the line of 40 trumpets, 25 horns, 16 oboes, 16 bassoons, 8 kettle drums, complete insanity, and supposedly 100 cannons. So you can imagine it was a lot of noise. And little by little, Händel got his wish and got what he really wanted to express in his own instrumentation, which is what you're going to hear tonight, which is normal size orchestra, strings included, cembalo. And it sounds magnificent.
One thing I'd like to call to your attention is some magnificent flute playing tonight. The orchestra has hired a new principal flutist, and she's quite wonderful. And there's a great sound in the Janacek with 3 flutes some of the time, and fantastic piccolo playing.
Oh, yeah.
This guy's great, and I guess he's going to be here for the rest of the season.
He's a guest, mainly, because the good news is I actually, first of all, you know that in this country it's completely illegal to ever talk about age, you know. So let me talk about age. Okay, the only thing that I can tell you is, as far as I know, this is the youngest player we have in the orchestra, our new principal flute. I don't know how old she is, I don't really care. But I only know she is really, really very, very young and very talented, and we are very excited to have her here on board with us. And little sidekick, if you have knowledge of the crew, the professors who teach at Portland State University, the great thing is that her aunt teaches at Portland State University. I mean, they are both Sindells, big name here in Portland, so now we have 2 of them. Both are talented.
I wonder if they'll do some chamber music duets or something.
Oh, I'm sure they
That
will.
would be fun. And Carol Sandell is also the violinist in the Florestan Trio, so you have a chance to hear her in that context. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, there is still, very briefly to mention, first of all, there is the Banchieri at the beginning, which is a little piece of something. It doesn't really matter why it was written or what the title really means. It's just fun music, and by the way, it's probably the shortest overture type music that you've ever heard, because in 1 minute 45 seconds it's over. Which gives us plenty of room to fiddle around with the Brahms Violin Concerto. And the Brahms Violin Concerto is a piece that even I didn't know that, or I simply didn't remember, that Brahms had conceived in the old days as a 4-movement concerto. And he actually had written 4 movements. And then in those days he was constantly in dialogue with Joseph Joachim, who was his advisor and who was the violinist who premiered the concerto. And he told Joseph Joachim, it's a very typical way of expressing himself. Brahms was very satirical and very ironic about himself. And he said, you know, I think that the movements 2 and 3 are the best movements I wrote about in this concerto, but I didn't like it. I threw that in the garbage can. And now I wrote another little piece of an adagio. It's not really worth something, but there you have it. Listen to the second movement, because thinking that Brahms says like in a certain snobbish way, it's a little piece of music. And then you hear this, it's quite astounding.
One thing I love about it, and you reminded me, is that slow movement begins with that gorgeous oboe solo, and the violinist just gets to stand and listen for a while. And then when he does come in, it sounds like he's going to play that theme, but then he just goes off, and it has a kind of extemporaneous feel to it, like, oh, that's interesting, let me elaborate on it. And it goes on in that way, and it's so beautiful. Oh.
Yeah, and also it has to be said that if you really force me to pick one movement out of Brahms' Violin Concerto in this interpretation, meaning Joshua Bell playing it, it would be the second. He plays it so exquisitely, so musical, so meaningful. It's quite astounding. And because you mentioned that this is an orchestra that tends to smile, of course, when you are on stage, and I work with this orchestra, and you are in the middle of the piece, and you are, of course, very intense, and you want to get a message across, and you look at your musicians, and you see I would call it the willpower in their eyes, and you see that the concentration of the musicians is so big, but they are still having a good time. That's when I think, yeah, see, that is why we make music.
And there's a life lesson here with that, and also what you were talking about with Aaron wanting to do the bass trumpet, because it would be better even if you hadn't asked him to do that. The life lesson being, the more you put into something, the more you get out of it. And it's worth remembering that.
Absolutely. And of course we put a lot of effort, and that is one of the reasons why Joshua Bell really likes us, because we treat him with a lot of respect, a lot of care, and we really want to do well with him as partners. And he feels that, and, well, you'll hear how he plays.
And, as I said before, you'll have a chance to meet him after the concert. Buy a CD, get Joshua Bell to autograph it for you. And your CD is sold out. They have to do another pressing.
We did another, yeah, we had to do, I mean, thank you to every Oregonian. If you didn't get your CD yet, there is another pressing. Think about this. When you put out CDs of classical music on our day and age, and you, first of all, the glorious years when you put out a CD and you thought you would make money on CDs are long gone. Stopped 20-25 years ago. On our day and age, you put out CDs, and if the CD is being noticed, you're kind of happy. Now, in our case, the thing where I think like, this is so odd. We put out a CD with a so insanely demanding program, And I would dare to say, to listen to the CD is so intense. I have my doubts whether it's so fun, but I have my own mindset in regards to what should be fun in art and what should not. And then the miracle happens, the CD got sold out. So it's not about putting another CD out there of Rhapsody in Blue, which is great fun and very good music, and that would sell probably. No, we put something extremely serious, well thought of, very meaningful, and people adore it. And of course, when I got the chance back in November to sign CDs at the table, and people were telling me, I just bought that for a Christmas present. I thought like, hey guys, I can't see you giving that Christmas present to somebody who you love, and the person is opening and seeing music for a time of war.
You're going to love this concert. Thank you so much for coming. Carlos and I will be doing a pre-concert chat before tomorrow night's concert too, so tell your friends to come early too. The more the merrier. Carlos Kalmar.
Robert McBride.